Good evening and welcome to Fellowships of the Spirit's Fireside Chat. I'm Mark Thomas, and our guest this evening, our speaker, is Hank Setala from Westlake, Ohio, near Cleveland. Hank is a 2011 graduate of our Fellowship School of Spiritual Healing and Prophecy and one of our ordained ministers at Fellowships as well. Hank is devoting his ministry and his work to an organization he's built called Emergence of Being, where they are helping people find and express their unique voice in the world in which we live. Hank, I'm sure, has a very inspiring message for us this evening, and we're very appreciative of having you with us, Hank. And
well, thank you for having me.
Turn that over to you, and it's all yours, sir. I'll catch you at the end.
Great. And now that it's just me, I'll take off the headphones since I don't have to worry about feedback. Thank you, everyone, so much for tuning in. And first, before we begin, really with the message that I have for you today, I want to share with you this amazing little prayer that I learned in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, because I've been in recovery for over 12 years. And it really sets the tone for everything that I'm going to be talking about. It's called the Set Aside Prayer. And it starts simply like this. Dear God, we give thanks for the air in our lungs, the food in our stomachs, the clothing on our backs, and the shelter over our heads. Thank you so much for giving this space to come together in this way. And help us set aside everything we think we know about politics, about religion, about spirituality, about duality, about oneness, about everything, especially you, God, that we may have an open mind and experience the truth. Amen. That is the great way to start any learning. If you're going to be taking a class or workshop, if you're listening to the thing right now, because we all have these filters. And this entire talk was inspired by a conversation I had with a very dear friend of mine, but it turned into a conversation of polarity and a conversation that started me to spiral down this rabbit hole that I was almost losing myself. And I chose to reach out to some healer friends of mine, get centered, and then it became this inspiration for this entire talk. So now I'm in immense gratitude for it. But what I want to say first is we have the tendency to forget that we're all looking at the world through filters. And my friend Param, he has this great analogy where he was actually on a TED Talks, and he's giving this example of how he used to work for this one company, and his boss, who always said good morning to him every single day, goes walking by his desk and doesn't say good morning that morning. And so the chattering monkey starts chirping in his ear saying, oh my gosh, my boss is a jerk. She didn't say hello to me. And then not only did she not say hello, a little bit later on, he sees that his boss is taking his close colleagues, a couple of his close colleagues, to his favorite Indian restaurant and aren't inviting him. So now Curious George becomes Furious George. So now he's already looking at his boss through the eyes of my boss is a jerk. Now my boss is unfair and my boss is unjust. He's wearing layer after layer and layer of glasses. And what really the truth of the matter was, his colleagues were on a project that wasn't going well. His boss had been in a meeting with her boss about this project not going well. And she went to her desk because she had a call and scheduled that meeting with his colleagues who were on the project and he wasn't, so they could go out to lunch and figure out how to save the project. So when we look at this, he's looking through the eyes of judgment. He's looking through these filters that are all based on his past experience, his past data, and not on what he knows as an infinite being. So when we look at people that appear in polarity to us, take a step back and trust and know that they are making 100% the right choice, the correct choice for them in this ever-present moment of now, based on their filters, their perceptions. And when we can look at that and understand that we have all these lenses and we may not be seeing the people for the actual people they are, which are all divine infinite beings, we start to look at the world in a very skewed way. So how do we get out of that? How do we take those glasses off? Because we've all had that experience where everything appears one way, and then all of a sudden one awareness shifts everything. So let me ask you the question, what are you aware of that you're not acknowledging that if you were to acknowledge would change your perception of everyone and everything around you? Listen to that again. What are you aware of that you're not willing to acknowledge? Because we're infinite beings. Source is all there is, all at once in the ever-present moment of now. In truth, is there anything that you don't know? Or do we pretend not to know? Because we're conforming to the reality, the projections, the expectations, the judgments, the conclusions of all the people around us. And a great awareness occurred to me too when I was talking to my friend and getting into this dialogue and almost didn't have the energy of an argument, but it felt like that opposition, right? And as an infinite being, as someone that has a lot of awareness, what if you might be aware of the other person's need to be right? So a great tool to start taking ourselves out of these lenses is to ask, one, is it yours? What are you aware of? And sometimes if you're aware that you might be playing into somebody else's polarity, somebody else's duality, because you're just aware of it, you can take a step back and say, well, that's not me. Who do I choose to be in creationship to that? And notice I say creationship, not relationship, because relationship is an acknowledgement of duality. And yes, we are in a duality. There's the apparent right or wrong. There's the two polarities, the two poles of positive and negative vibration. But source is all there is all at once. And we are all individualizations of this source consciousness. And in that way, if we can start looking at everything as being in creationship with it, instead of relationship with it, we move into the space of being in the world, but not of it. To be in a space of choosing an action or responding instead of reaction. And there's this energy that really creates the space for us to do this called allowance. And allowance is often misidentified and misapplied as acceptance, but it's very, very different. If you align and agree with or resist or react to anything, you're lacking in a space of duality. And you're lacking in a space of polarity. Allowance is a space of letting everything be and not judging it. Excuse me, and not judging it. I give the analogy of a rock in a stream. You have all the energies of creation flowing around you. And if you align and agree with those energies, you get washed down the stream. You get washed in the river of unconsciousness and consciousness, and you lose yourself. If you resist and react to it, pushing against all the energies, that rock gets whittled away till it becomes just as small as a grain of sand, and it gets lost in that sea as well. So what is allowance? Allowance is not having a point of view about the energies around you, letting it be, but choosing who you are going to be in creationship to it, not relationship to it. Relationship would feed it. You're holding that space, and as you hold that space, other aspects of divinity, other people can start to create that space too. And instead of just being washed around in the sea of unconsciousness, we can all start to choose consciously. And I believe that we're in this huge shift in this world, and COVID has a lot to do with it. That's one reason I created this, a new world, a new possibility. When there was supposed to be so much trauma and drama in the world, I have the knowing that energy flows where your attention goes. And I chose to create something for people to focus on, a thing of possibility, a thing of change in the world. And COVID is an acronym for me. It's become a verb, because Spirit told me one day, sit down, we're going to give you an acronym for this. And I sat down and I started to figure out an acronym. They're like, no, we'll just give it to you. I shared this on the last time I was on the Fireside Chat, and it's so important, so timely even today. It's an acronym for creating opportunities via intuiting divinity. And if we were to truly start creating from that space and truly feeling the impulse of the soul or the pulse of the soul, and choosing the actions that are congruent with the totality of our being instead of ego, which is edging God out. For those of you who know me, I'm an acronym nerd, right? But if we start really creating from that space of divinity, what world would we create? And if we stop reacting to everything and we stop holding in judgment about people, places, and things, it's going to create this different space for us. It's going to create a space of, well, let me give you an example. If people are fighting, they're like this, right? For every action, there's an equal opposite reaction. What if all of a sudden you stop pushing back? What happens? You're holding space over here. That person falls into that space. It creates a bubble of possibility for them to choose something different, because they're no longer having to fight to be right, right? So anything in polarity, that is the thing that we're looking to step out of, so we can start to be in the world, but not of it, to be able to respond instead of react. Just to share with you, let me see here. I have to reference some notes because I have to quote Osho. In this conversation, my friend is like the warrior person, and he's really caught up in a lot of the drama, the trauma and the drama. And there certainly is a lot going on in the world. And then he sends me this meme that's quoting an Indian mystic named Osho. And the quote was very much taken out of context for how Osho would look at things. But he said, Osho said, you may be the last generation which has the possibility to rebel. And if you don't rebel, There may be no more chances. Humanity can be reduced to a robot-like existence, so rebel while there is still time. Now, of course, through the lenses of a warrior, this is like green light, let's go fight, 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 and prove that we're right and destroy the other side. But thanks to my friend Param, who I referenced earlier, who did the TED Talk, I'm very familiar with the works of Osho. And I looked up from, I forget which book now, I have it written down here. But Osho has a very unique perspective on the word rebel. So let me share that with you. He says, it is an old association and a misunderstanding that to be a nonconformist is to be a rebel. The nonconformist is a reactionary. He acts out of anger, rage, violence, and ego. His action is not based in consciousness. Although he goes against the society, just to be against the society is not necessarily to be right. In fact, most of the time, to move from one extreme to another is always to move from one wrong to another wrong. The rebel acts with tremendous balance, and that is not possible without awareness, alertness, and immense compassion. It is not a reaction. It is an action, not against the old, but for the new. The rebel is creating the new world so that this misery and suffering and this ugly society disappears, and man can live more naturally, more beautifully, more lovingly, more peacefully, enjoying all the riches that existence makes available, all the gifts of life which are invaluable. Freedom, love, silence, truth, enlightenment, the ultimate flowering of your being, all are available to the true rebel. The hindrances just have to be removed. All the old structures were creating more and more hindrances and obstructions against your growth. If the rebel is against those obstructions, it is to enable the new man to live without fetters, to live without imprisonment, to live outside the concentration camps, and to live a life as free as a bird on the wing, as free as a rosebush dancing in the rain, in the sun, as free as a moon moving in the sky beyond the clouds in utter beauty, blissfulness, and peace. The rebel is a totally different kind of man from the nonconformist. Never forget it, because to be a nonconformist is very easy, but to be a rebel needs a tremendous transformation in your being. I'm grateful to have had this conversation with my friend, and I still consider him a great friend. And the people closest to us oftentimes agitate the shadow that lies within. And I invite all of you, don't look at your shadow as this thing that's negative and this thing that you have to suppress and be shameful of and be guilty of. Everybody has made 100% the right choice in the moment. And then we start judging ourselves based on past data, right? Based on our perception, points of view, and all that, even when we make silly choices, in that moment, it was the right choice based on our awareness. But then we start to judge ourselves. We start to judge past actions based on current data, and then we become guilty and remorseful of it. And then what happens? We start to see the places that we judge ourselves and other people, places, and things. So to take a step back, to give ourselves the benefit of the doubt, and to be an allowance of all of our choices, knowing that in that golden tapestry of life, it all is as it should be. We were playing the roles that we needed to play. And now that those roles are behind us, who do we choose to be now in this ever-present moment? My favorite synopsis of the universe and how it all works is source is all there is all at once in the ever-present moment of now. Choose who you're going to be in creationship to your perceived reality, and the universe will deliver you opportunities to express that being through doing. So I invite all of you, who do you choose to be in this world? And take a moment to not get caught up with judging people, but know that they're right where they need to be an allowance of their point of view, and simply choose who you're going to be in creationship to that. That will hold the space for us to start to change the world exponentially. And with that, I thank you so much. I hope all of you enjoyed the talk and really take it to heart. Please share that, your inspirations, with your family and friends, because you changing one person's point of view just a little bit, or holding the space for them to change just a little bit, will have this ripple effect. Neil Donald Walsh calls it the multiplier effect. All you have to do is show up and be you, hold the space, and other people can start to step into their divine potential. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Hank. I thoroughly enjoyed that this evening. That was beautifully Beautifully presented. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Glad to have you back with us again to do a fireside chat. We'll have to get you back here again. Very inspiring words for us this evening. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. Our speaker next week will be Marcy Newman. Marcy and Elaine went to the same seminary back a few years back, and Marcy's going to be with us doing our fireside chat next week. And so thank you all for joining us this evening with Hank Setala, and we look forward to your coming back and joining us next week as well. Have a blessed week and a good evening. Good night.
Bye, everyone.